Today, we are busting a big myth that your primary job as a manager is to hold people accountable. So, spoiler alert, chasing accountability alone is yesterday's playbook because what people want today and what performance data keeps proving is that ownership is what really matters. That is when every team member feels personally responsible for the outcomes, not just the tasks. Welcome back to the Modern Manager. I am Mamie Camper-Stewart, and every week I share tips and strategies to help you be a rockstar manager with a thriving team. By the end of this video, you will know how to shift from managing through accountability to a culture of ownership. So let's say goodbye to the old model of accountability and hello to the ownership engine. Now let's dive in. But before we do, please hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a video. It is time for you to get out of that accountability trap. Managers that focus on inspection and consequences, inevitably we drift into micromanagement and the sense that we are constantly having to hold our team members' hands and make sure that work gets done right. You might be experiencing some of these symptoms like having to have endless check-ins and getting really frustrated by missed deadlines despite all the reminders. And maybe you have a vibe of, I have to babysit my people or I have to handhold them rather than feeling like you're really partnering and you're collaborating. This is where that ownership sense comes in. Ownership is intrinsic. I own the goal. I own the metrics. I am responsible for getting my work done because I am the owner. There is research from Gallup from 2023 that found when both engagement and a sense of ownership are high, 97% of employees say that they intend to stay versus only 21% when both are low. That is good for you because you want your people to stay. It's good for the team because it creates stability, and it's good for the individual because they can really thrive in their role. Now, before we dive in on how to build that culture of ownership, it is important to note that there are times when accountability is the right strategy. So let's take a look at some of those. First is when you're in a regulated or a high-stakes environment, when mistakes can result in legal consequences or safety issues or severe financial losses or other really critical challenges, you might want that extra layer of oversight. In these cases, clear lines of accountability, knowing exactly who is responsible, making sure there's a clear chain, knowing what standards must be followed or any SOPs, those kinds of situations and those kinds of systems are essential to preventing major risks. The second context is during a crisis or an emergency. When there are urgent decisions that need to get made, it often requires a more command and control kind of structure. And accountability then ensures swift, clear delegation and follow through without ambiguity or debate. Accountability is also important when you're building new habits or implementing a new system, because the early stages of change efforts often require some external accountability, things like deadlines and check-ins, because we need those to help us build consistency until those new behaviors become habitual. And then we can shift from accountability into ownership. Lastly, accountability is really helpful when you have someone who is underperforming or you have a new hire who is still getting their feet on the ground. Because before a person can really take ownership, they might need some structure, they might need some additional oversight, they're going to need more corrective feedback, and accountability provides that kind of scaffolding. Now let's take a look at what you can do to build and foster that culture of ownership, because this is where you really want to focus. So ideally, you will start by replacing task lists with outcomes. So instead of assigning to your team member, call 5 clients to discuss renewing our engagements, you will say something like, our goal is to increase our customer renewal rate by 5%. Even if you're going to still assign the task to the person to call 5 clients, it starts by connecting that task to the bigger outcome. Because understanding how your work connects to the bigger picture goal and why that goal matters drives that internal motivation and that sense of importance that what I am doing matters. You want to use some sort of shared document or something so that you can capture that outcome and the tasks that are associated, because when things are documented, you can then revisit them and you can track progress. The second step is to be really clear, or as clear as you can be, on decision rights and where you need to be involved and where the person can run things on their own and where you need to come together. This is so important to clarify what decisions someone else can make when it comes to this particular set of work. So things like, can they change the tasks if they have a better idea of how to reach the outcome? Can they spend budget against this? And if so, up to what amount? Can they share the finished report directly with the rest of the team or with the client without you looking at it first? It is really hard to feel ownership over something when you don't have any authority or when you're just unclear about what authority you do have. So identifying when and how you need to provide oversight or be involved is essential to giving the person that sense of authority and ownership. And this is why it's important to distinguish which decisions they can make independently, which you should be involved in, and which you alone are going to own. Now, just because you've given people ownership doesn't mean that you are out of the picture. It is important to set up those regular check-ins in advance so that the reporting or the connecting and the partnering is really on their terms, and it focuses on support rather than accountability. And this could look like a bunch of different things. So it might be a dashboard that they update weekly with their progress and any concerns that they're having. Or maybe they send you once a week an email that highlights the key tasks that are completed, along with any challenges or roadblocks that they would like your thought partnership on. Or perhaps you have a 15-minute weekly check-in with them just to review the progress and answer any questions. And what's great about this is you can be flexible. You can figure out whatever works for each person. It doesn't have to be the same across your team. That way you've designed a system with them that works for them. Now, 2 important parts of this. Number 1, you want to shift away from focusing too much on feedback and policing and focus a little bit more on coaching and support. So instead of saying something like, "Why was this late?" you might ask something like, "What's blocking you and how can I help?" You could replace something like, "What did you get done this week?" with, "Where do we stand against the goal?" And you could replace, "Walk me through this," with, "What should I know so that I can be most helpful to you?" Secondly, you want to celebrate ownership behaviors, not just the results. We don't always hit all of our outcomes, but if we're doing the right behaviors, that is worth celebrating. So give a shout out when someone has been proactive in their problem solving and either figured things out on their own or brought you a recommendation instead of just the problem. And celebrate when you discover that colleagues have been working together and mentoring each other and not just relying on you for support. You want to celebrate when your team member is doing things right, like completing tasks on time, reaching out for help before things become a big deal. Those are the right behaviors, even if they're not quite hitting the big goals yet. So here's my offer for you. At your next team meeting, talk to your team about the difference between accountability and ownership. Let them know that accountability is you holding them accountable to your plans, whereas ownership is them holding themselves accountable to their plans. Let them know that you want to partner with them differently so that they can take on more ownership of their work and that you are really there to support and to guide them. Then you can work with each person individually to clarify their goals, what responsibilities they have, and what decisions they can make. And then watch what happens. Relying on accountability reinforces the unhealthy dynamic that I am in charge and you need to do what I say. But when you rely on ownership, you're saying you are in charge of yourself and I'm going to treat you as a responsible person and I'm here to help you succeed. When you swap the accountability mindset for an ownership mindset, you will tap into the creativity and the commitment and the motivation of your people. If today's episode sparked some ideas for you, please share it with a fellow leader and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a video. I share practical tips and strategies for how to be a rockstar manager with a thriving team every week.